Did you know that over 30% of people worldwide are suffering from some sort of sleep disorder? That is over 2.6 billion people who are struggling to fall or stay asleep several times a week. Now, you would think that by now we would have found some kind of solution for something that affects so many people and impacts every part of our life, our physical and mental health. Yet, most of us never really get to the bottom of their sleep problems. Instead, we spend years and a lot of money often trying all sorts of random tips, hacks, pills, supplements, gadgets, meditation, and maybe things have improved slightly for you, but you feel like it's just a never ending battle and you just don't know why you can't sleep. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how you can assess your own sleep and find the root cause without spending lots of money on trackers or gadgets. And this is the same process that I use with my coaching clients to help them build a sleep routine that actually works for them and their unique lifestyle and situation. All of the assessments and links and templates are available for free in the description of the video, so make sure you have them ready and you grab them before you follow along with this video. So by the end of this video, you will have a starting point. You will know how to improve your sleep based on your own unique situation. So let's dive in. If you really want to get to the bottom of your sleep problems, you have to start by understanding your current situation, right? You can't fix a problem if you don't know what's causing the problem in the first place. You wouldn't go to a doctor's and expect them to just come up with the perfect treatment for you without looking at you, without doing some kind of assessment and diagnosing you first. And it's the same when it comes to sleep. If you follow random advice online, like go to bed at the same time every night, stop drinking caffeine after 2 p.m., you will get random results. Now, sure, these tips will help a lot of people. I recommend these as well, but they are generic, and sleep is a very personal, very unique thing. So in my last video, I talked a little bit about sleep hygiene tips and why they're kind of keeping you from sleeping well and why they're counterproductive. And I also talked about the 3 mechanisms that regulate sleep in your body. That's your sleep pressure, your circadian rhythm, and your nervous system. Now make sure you watch that video if you want a deeper dive into those 3 areas. But essentially, in order to sleep well, you need to harmonize those 3 components. And your sleep problems are most likely caused by an imbalance of either one or multiple of those areas. But before you even attempt to make any changes or improvements to those 3 systems that I mentioned, you need to take a step back first and get a full picture of your current habits, right? Your behaviors, your lifestyle, everything that could be leading to poor sleep. And you might think some of these are obvious. I simply stay up too late, or I should be drinking less caffeine. Yes, but there is so much more going on that you might not even be aware of. So I'm going to walk you through these 5 assessments that will help you uncover some of the barriers that are preventing you from sleeping well consistently. But first, before we jump into that, we need to do one really important step, and that is a health check for any underlying health conditions or disorders that may be going on outside of your behaviors and habits. This is super important because we can identify potential clinical disorders such as sleep apnea that will require the attention of a medical specialist and further deeper assessment and diagnosis. So if you feel like there are any red flags here, if you're unsure, stop the video and please consult your doctor, medical professional before you try anything else. So let's start with this quick health check. Answer these questions with a simple yes or no. Do you snore loudly or experience pauses in your breathing at night? Do you ever wake up gasping, choking, or feeling like you stop breathing? Do you feel excessively sleepy during the day, even though you've had more than 7 or 8 hours of sleep? And do your legs feel restless, tingling, uncomfortable at night, especially when you're lying still? And then the last one, have you ever fallen asleep unintentionally while driving, working, sitting upright? Now, if you answered yes to 2 or more of these, stop right here and please see your doctor, because sleep apnea is still very much underdiagnosed, especially in women and the younger population. So if you have any doubts, please just make sure to get it checked out. And of course, there could be a multitude of other disorders like restless leg syndrome and other sleep disorders that will require a proper treatment. Now that we have this out of the way, let's jump into step 2, assessing your sleep beliefs. This might be a little bit surprising as an assessment, but before we look at your bedtime, your diet, anything else that you think might be very obvious, we need to address the biggest factor that I see in most sleep-related problems when I talk to my clients. And that is the negative and often unhelpful thoughts and beliefs related to sleep that may cause many of their behaviors that are leading to poor sleep. So for this assessment, you simply rate how strongly you believe in each of these statements shown on the screen, and you rate it from 1 to 10. So 1, you don't believe in this at all, and 10, you absolutely strongly believe in this, and you completely believe that this statement is true. And then at the end, what you do is you add up all of your numbers that you have, all of the scores, and you divide them by 15. If you get a score that is higher than a 4, then you are likely to have some unrealistic expectations about your sleep, your ability to cope with loss of sleep, and that might be a significant contributor to your sleep problems. Now, I have a link below as well in the description, and that will give you an automatic score. So you can just click on the scores and it will do it all for you rather than you having to pause the video and doing it manually. Now let's look at your circadian rhythm, which is one of the 3 mechanisms that influences and regulates your sleep. Now, this assessment identifies whether your internal body clock is aligned with your current lifestyle, your schedule, or whether you're actively working against it. In this assessment, you simply answer yes or no to the following questions. Do you get sunlight within 30 minutes of waking up most days? Do you expose yourself to blue light screens after 9 p.m.? Are your wake and sleep times pretty consistent? Are they within 30 to 60 minutes every single day, even on weekends? Do you feel most alert at night and struggle to wind down before midnight? And do you feel wide awake in the evening despite being tired all day? Again, if you answered quite a lot of them with a yes, then there is likely a circadian misalignment going on. Now, in this area, I also typically ask my clients to identify what we call a chronotype, which is your genetic preference towards a specific schedule. So it basically defines whether you are more of a morning person and you want to wake up early and you're alert earlier in the day, or whether you're more of an evening type. And again, I have the link below where you can take the quiz. There's also lots of them online, so don't feel like you have to take mine. But essentially, you want to understand, are you more of a morning person? Are you more of an evening person? Or potentially, are you somewhere in between? And that will then help you establish whether you might be getting up too early or going to bed too late or too early, etc. Then from there, we move into what I call a stimulus control assessment. So one very common trait amongst people who have had, chronic sleep problems or have insomnia is that their brain has been conditioned to see the bed as a place to be awake and to basically feel anxious and feeling awake and thinking about things. It's been conditioned for so many years, months, because that is what you're used to, right? And that's what your brain learns, and then essentially just repeats over and over again. It's a pattern. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine, and it will simply repeat the pattern until you break that cycle. So again, ask yourself here, how often do you lie in bed unable to sleep for 30 plus minutes? So How often does that happen where you're just, waking up in the middle of the night and you're basically lying there for a very, very long time? How often do you check your work emails, or how often do you actually work from the bed, maybe on your laptop, on your phone? How often do you eat or drink in bed? How often do you stay in bed when you can't go back to sleep at night? So if you're in bed unable to sleep, you're awake, do you typically just stay in bed, and how often does that happen? And how often do you feel anxious when you're just lying in bed normally, or you're approaching bedtime? Again, if your answers are often or most nights, then this is an area that you need to address and prioritize. And then we move into what I call a lifestyle and environment check. Now, this is actually where most people, they start there. Things like your diet, caffeine intake, your bedroom temperature, what mattress you have, what lights you're using. But actually, when I'm working with clients, that is really the last thing that we work on, to optimize everything else, to optimize that foundation, that behavioral foundation, and the circadian rhythm, and all of these systems that need to be in place. So after we've done all that work, then we can look at what are these lifestyle optimization elements that we can add in to kind of make your sleep even better. When clients come to me, they often already have the perfect bedtime routine. They rarely drink alcohol. They only drink caffeine in the morning, and they don't understand what they're doing wrong, right? They feel like they're doing all the things that they're supposed to do. But then when we dig deeper into their sleep-related thoughts, beliefs, the behaviors that they have, they're working against their own internal body, and they realize that that's actually where they've gone wrong all this time, and that they've been focusing on the wrong things. So that's why this assessment comes at the end, and is really not that much of a priority unless you are drinking a lot of alcohol every night, right? Then obviously that's going to affect your sleep. But in order to answer a lot of the questions that we've just gone through, these assessments truthfully and with actual backed up data, you do also need to log and track your schedule, your daytime, your bedtime habits. And typically I ask my clients to do that for at least a week, so that we can get a really good understanding of where they are. And this is really where the magic happens, because finally you get true insights. When you see that data in front of you, it really opens your eyes to what is actually happening with your sleep, and where you can make adjustments to your habits that will make the biggest impact. And many people use sleep trackers, and me included, right? I have an Oura ring, I have a Fitbit, I have all the trackers, and I love studying the data because that's my job. I am a sleep nerd, so I love doing that. But there is a problem with these devices, and that we need to address. First of all, they're not always super accurate. In fact, even the Oura ring, which is supposed to be the most accurate sleep tracker for consumers outside of a sleep study, even the Oura ring will only get to maybe about 80% max in terms of accuracy. And this is especially true for tracking different sleep phases, like your REM sleep, your deep sleep, your light sleep, when you are awake and when you are actually asleep. So it's not always super accurate in those phases, and it might think that you are asleep when you're awake and the other way around. So it's a great tool to give you an idea of how your sleep is trending over time, and it gives you some great insights, right? But please take it with a pinch of salt, and please don't obsess over getting the perfect night of sleep or optimizing your score every night. This kind of obsession can really backfire and make you even more anxious, making your sleep even worse. So the best tool that really you can use for an initial assessment is just a very simple sleep diary. And that can be physical in an actual diary if you want, a notebook. It can be digital, where you can track things like what time did you go to bed? How long did it take you to fall asleep? What time did you wake up? How many wake ups did you have during the night, and for how long? What are your energy levels like in the morning? What's your mood that day? You know, did you have any stressful activities? You know, what's your work schedule? What are your meals like? What's your sunlight exposure, your exercise routine? All of these things can be tracked in a diary so that at the end of the week, you can look back and you can actually see what's happening and what is truly causing your sleep problems. Now, I have a link again for you with a sleep diary that I use with my clients, and it's a super simple spreadsheet. It's a Google Sheet, and it calculates all of your trends and your averages every week as well. So feel free to use that. I highly recommend it. So once you have all of this information, right, you've gathered a lot of information. You've got your beliefs assessment, your circadian rhythm, your stimulus control. You've got all of these daytime habits, when you're getting up, when you're going to sleep. Now you have a lot of data. And what you can do now is you can start making improvements in the right places, and you know what to focus on. So it's no longer a guessing game or just trying random things that you see online, right? You can actually personalize your sleep improvement journey. So let me just give you some really simple examples of how my clients have done this so that you can apply this right away. For example, if you have a high score on negative thoughts and beliefs, so you've got a lot of beliefs that are an 8 or a 9 or a 10, or even like anything above a 5 is a pretty strong belief. So one of the things you can do there is go through them and review them, think about how you could actually reframe them, turn them into something more positive or a more realistic thought that will actually help you in the long run. So what I mean by that is, for example, I was working with a client, actually several clients, that had a very strong belief in needing 8 hours of sleep every night. They, rated themselves a 10 on that. And they were pretty adamant, at first, in the first week, to say, yeah, I really need 8 hours of sleep. I just don't feel refreshed if I don't get my 8 hours. And I used to be honest, I used to be like that as well. But the fact is, if you're getting hung up on this number, you are actually putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and you find it actually harder to sleep well because you're now worrying about not getting enough sleep, right? And the other thing is that the 8 hours of sleep don't really mean anything if it's not a good quality sleep. So what I mean by that is you could have really good sleep for 6.5 hours with a lot of deep sleep, let's say an hour and a half of deep sleep, which is quite a lot more than what you normally get. And then maybe 2 hours of REM sleep, a little bit of light sleep. And that's a lot of quality sleep squeezed into a short amount of time. And that happens sometimes because your body is trying to recover some of that lost sleep quality. But what I'm saying is you could sleep really well for 6.5 hours, get up and feel pretty good during the day, but you could have a really bad sleep for 9 hours. Maybe you're sick and your deep sleep is half an hour and you keep waking up in the middle of the night. You are tossing and turning, and for 9 hours, right? You can see that it doesn't matter on paper. It says you slept 9 hours and you slept 6.5 hours the other night, but actually the 6.5 hours are much, much better for you, and much better for your health as well. Just focus on how you actually feel after you sleep. If you feel relatively alert throughout the day and you don't really feel like you need a nap, or you're really desperate to, go to sleep in the middle of the day, then your sleep was probably fine, and you don't need to worry about not getting your 8 hours, because that can be counterproductive. So that's one way of reframing that first sleep belief on the assessment. And there's many ways that we can do that, and I'm going to talk more about that in my next few videos. But to give you another example, another client of mine was going to bed at the same time, but the timing was actually a little bit too early for him. So even though he was going to bed at the same time every night, and he had a really consistent wake up time as well during the week, actually he was going to bed too early, and it was making him wake up too early as well in the morning, and causing a lot of racing thoughts, overthinking at 3-4 a.m. in the morning. What we started doing was, instead of trying to fix the overthinking problem, which we addressed later on, he started going to bed slightly later. So that sounds a little bit crazy, right? Like a sleep coach telling you to go to bed later. But he went to bed maybe 30, 45 minutes later than he normally does, which would have been 11:30, almost midnight, so pretty late. But he would actually immediately see an increase in his sleep quality, and he wasn't waking up so early anymore. So he was waking up a little bit later, and he was still having some of those problems with overthinking and, worries about his work, etc. But we were able to address that first foundational problem of him having the wrong schedule. And then we started addressing the next problem, which was the overthinking and worrying and anxiety. You can see how you can take some of these data points that you have collected to start making these small foundational improvements to your sleep. Another example is I had a client with a pretty consistent bedtime routine, but she was really struggling to get up in the morning, and her wake up times were pretty inconsistent, maybe like 6:30 one day, and then it was 8 a.m. another day. And she also didn't get much daylight exposure in the morning. So we focused on this area first and foremost. And she started getting up at the same time every day, which was not super early. I believe it was maybe around 7:30, 8 a.m., somewhere around that. So we found a time that worked for her with her schedule. And what she started doing was, instead of just randomly sort of procrastinating doing things around the house, when she woke up, she would immediately go outside with her dog, and that was the first thing she would do, which is actually what I do as well. That's basically my routine. Is I get up and go out with the dog straight away for 45 minutes. And because of that daylight exposure, it resets her circadian rhythm, and it gives her a boost of energy for the rest of the day, and that really set her up for the day. And it also meant that at night she was more likely to fall asleep faster and was sleeping deeper. You can see how this could be applied potentially to your situation. So once you've completed all of the assessments, make a note of the areas that you feel like are most out of sync, that need prioritization, and you want to take these areas into consideration the most. Now, here's a table of these different, areas, and you can score them in sort of red, yellow, green, if you like, and that way you can kind of see immediately, where are the red areas, what do I need to do first. But in the next video, what I'm going to do is I'll break down those thoughts and beliefs and why they're so important, and how you can start to reframe all of them. So if you scored high on that sleep beliefs assessment, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that video. But also, if you want my full step-by-step guide on how to reset your sleep using my proven framework that I use with my clients, check out my ebook, The Sleep Reset Blueprint. It's a 60-page PDF that walks you through the 5 steps to basically build a healthy sleep routine for life and to end those restless nights, right? It also includes all the assessments, and it includes a 6-week implementation plan so that you can put everything into practice. And at the moment, I have a special offer running. Check out the link in the description. If you find it easier, just comment Blueprint below and I will send you the link. And if you purchase the ebook, as a bonus, you also get a free one-on-one private coaching session. It means that you can ask me any questions, and we can walk through your assessments. We can, create a little personalized plan for you so I can help you in your sleep improvement journey. So that's it for today's video. Thank you and sleep well.